we did what we can, save money. And that was it. It was scraping together money in the beginning.
Did you take out debt?
Yeah, I sold my house.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I sold my house and
Small deal.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. Yeah, I bought my house in 2001 and held on to it long enough to have enough money to sort of invest in my own company. Leo, thank you.
Season 5, episode 1. We are here.
We are here.
And you know, I'm really excited because we've talked about this for a long time, and you know, you're someone that I've gotten to know better and better over the years, but have always been a fan of your company and your cider. And it's for those of you that have not had Lost Giants Cider, it is my favorite cider, period.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a long overdue, I think. Yeah. Partly because we're just busy, but
yeah. What are you busy doing? What do you do?
Run a cidery with my partner Abe. Lost Giants Cider, in fact.
You're located just down below Civic Field.
Yep, we're in the Haskell Business Center, sort of central city.
Yep.
Down the street from Fred Meyer.
Yep. So
a little off the main paths, but getting there. Bellingham's growing.
God, Fred Meyer has such an easy access to you guys, and I'm glad they do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice for us to get trucks in and out of there as well,
yep.
And just be on another side of town where there's not a lot of resources, or I guess places to drink, places to eat, and hopefully that's filling in more.
Yeah, and just for the record, just if you have to go to Fred Meyer to get your groceries, pick up some Lost Giant cider there, but go to the tap room because it's a cool experience. And you guys have a lot more cider on tap than is canned, correct?
Yeah, we do. We have 10 taps. Usually they're all full of the main styles the flagships, I guess you could call them, that we can. And then we have, we do all one-offs a lot, reoccurring, like pineapple habanero is usually reoccurring. I brought you a ginger and lime, which is our infuser. So yeah, we have a lot of choices in the tap room that you won't find at the stores. Kind of like a lot of, breweries and other cideries.
Right. It's interesting too. You had mentioned something earlier about one of the reasons that you got into drinking cider. You do like cider. You did like cider before, but being in the beer world, you had a hard time finding something that wasn't sweet.
Right.
So tell me a little bit more, because it's like one of the things that my wife and I talk about regularly about what we love the most about this is none of them, even the ones that have sweeter palate, are not sweet. They're kind of drier.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about that kind of journey, getting into the less sweet cider world.
Yeah. Well, it went from being in the beer world, and then our story is kind of the same as a lot of people. Everybody drank cider or drinks or has drank cider in a bar or at a restaurant or something. And we've had these choices of like Strongbow and Angry Orchard, and there was these main staples, and I always thought they were sweet.
They're very sweet.
And who wants to drink a cup of sugar? It's sort of like drinking it's sort of like there's certain beers like that too, where it's just, I'll have one and then it's like, that's too much sugar.
Yeah.
And so I think the Pacific Northwest is a health conscious area, and people are looking for a less sweet alternative. But really, so that was kind of our experience. Is we didn't have we search out ciders for less sweet, drier versions, and
just regionally and locally too.
Yeah, regionally, and then anytime you travel, try to find those options. So that was really the idea, is like we saw an opportunity. We also were looking to make something that we liked, and so we sort of jumped over to the cider world and out of the beer world.
And it's interesting because Bellingham has an abundance of good beer.
Yes.
Has an abundance of hazy IPA beer too. I mean, there's a lot of one thing, which is great because people love that here, but they're really, at that time it was probably Herbs
Mm-hmm.
had started around the same time, and then Bellingham Cider Company around the same time.
Right.
But and those are both great companies, and they make good cider. But yours has really stuck to me as like the front runner. And how's the relationship with those other cideries? Because there's only a couple others, right?
Yeah.
Did I miss any other cider companies?
Yeah. There's Herbs is now gone.
Yeah.
They closed up last year, and they were making really good cider.
Yeah.
Our relationship is good with everybody. We actually don't get to see it. We're all so busy. We're so small. All of us are so small and owner operated that we're working a lot. So we don't get a huge opportunity to connect. But there's Honeymoon,
Honeymoon.
the cider head. And they've been around longer than any of us. But yeah, Bellingham Cider, Herbs, and us all started about the same time. I think everybody saw the same opportunity to bring in craft cider. But yeah, it's what was the question?
It was just about like when you entered all kind of around the same time.
Yeah.
And they both have good cider.
Yeah.
But no one really went for like this. The other thing I've seen is really dry cider, like really dry cider.
Yeah.
Almost uncomfortably dry cider.
Yeah.
But you guys are like, you found this like middle zone. Was that just like based on your own palate, or like how did you like land on this being the spectrum?
Yeah. Well, we started off with a semi-sweet.
Yeah.
That was our sort of beginning cider that we were going to can. That was our whole plan. And we put it out on the market. It was in a red can. You probably don't remember it because it was. Oh, you do?
Yeah, I have a picture of it with Mount Baker behind it that I sent to Aaron.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So that was we were trying to figure out. We liked it, but it was almost a little sweet for us. But we thought that's what our customers wanted. Mm-hmm. We weren't really sure. We had to find out, and so starting there was our sort of baseline of where we need to be. And we immediately found that that's not what people want around here.
Interesting.
And
how did you find feedback?
Asking everyone.
Just everyone that came in, or like just anything?
Asking anybody that we carried it, which wasn't a lot. But, and we also thought it was a little sweet. So we started making other versions, drier, fruited, adding fruit. And I think pineapple or maybe elderberry came next.
Right.
And so that was sort of really, we're 5 years in and we're still trying to figure out what styles we really love. And I think we've landed on these for the most part, but
I've seen these on rotation regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the, like, you produce obviously for, wholesale, and you produce in the tap room, and you produce, stuff that you like too, and what you think people like, but what are some of the like super funky, like interesting ones that you've created?
Oh man. Well, we have this infusion program that we've had from early on that was based on a hop randle. Mm-hmm. So most people don't know what that it is, but it's from the beer world, where you'd put fresh hops in an infusion device, a hop randle, and as the beer would go through it, and you'd get this added components of the hops it's like fresh hopping in a way. So we took that idea and decided to use fruit and herbs and whatever else we wanted to just experiment with. And we've done that for 4 years now.
And you obviously have to sample a lot of it.
We have to sample a lot. Yeah. And so that just allowed us to keep trying all these different flavors until we'd land on certain things. So, jalapeno cucumber.
It's a good flavor.
It is. And we based that off of having a margarita one time that was jalapeno cucumber. And we're like, well, this could work with apples.
Yeah.
And it did. People still love that one when we bring it back. Citrus really works well. So like blood orange, mm-hmm. pineapple. It's hard to remember all the crazy concoctions that we've done. We've tried fresh coffee.
Coffee cider.
Ground coffee, ground beans.
How was that?
It wasn't very good.
Yeah.
It's probably exactly what you think it'll taste like.
Yeah, you're like, I have to finish this, but it's not going to production.
Yeah. We dumped a lot of that. Yeah. It wasn't like big batches.
Does it have caffeine in it too?
Sure. It has coffee.
Wow. So it's like a Four Loko kind of.
Yeah. It was original Four Loko. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. So anything was fair game, and still is.
Yeah.
So whatever's seasonal, like we just did, we do rhubarb strawberry, but really anything that's low, and we have everything here.
Yeah.
So we just try it all. Maybe not green beans or something like that, but anything that you would think that would taste good.
If you guys put in a can, I'd probably drink it.
Yeah,
I trust you.
You would drink it.
Green bean, yeah, I'll drink anything.
Yeah,
I'll go, but not anything that you guys put out. Yeah,
right.
It's a trustworthy thing.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you trust us.
Well, okay, so there's a point in a business when you're spending time establishing a brand, and obviously I'm fairly certain with your design background that you created the logo.
Well, I actually didn't.
Whoa.
I worked with my friend who's a local designer, Greg DeVere, and he's a fantastic designer. But he's been my friend for over 20 years, and I always wanted to hire him.
Yeah.
And I finally had the chance to.
And he delivered.
So we spent some time creating the logo. Most of it's him. But
is that him on the can, or is that
no?
Because you guys both have beards.
No. Well, Greg. Oh, you mean Abe?
Yeah.
No, it really. I think it's just an inspiration of Northwest bearded dudes.
There's a lot of them. I'm one of them. You're one of them.
I'm one. Yeah. And if I let it go, it'll get like that. Yeah. Abe's is already there. But no, it's really just there is no person behind that logo. It's more of just a representation of the Northwest.
Yeah. I love that.
And our name is the same way. It's it really just is I guess an homage to old growth trees.
Yeah.
They're the Lost Giants that we all play in the woods.
It's funny because Tiffany and I were kind of speculating. There's this old fairy tale in the old world about Lost Giants. I don't know. We were just trying to speculate.
Oh, you like giant people?
Giant people.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we've gone down all the rabbit holes with Lost Giants
as to like what people are assuming or just like what it could be, what the story could be.
Yeah, well, and just researching our logo, you have to make sure that nobody else has your name.
Yeah,
and so that just takes you down a long path.
Was there anything close, like Found Giants or something? Was there like good dad joke?
Yeah, that is a good dad.
Just that.
Yeah, cheers.
Nice. But was it when you were starting to look at the name and like you're obviously when you're branding yourself, you're like you're looking at everything out there, but you also get tunnel vision that like this thing that you keep refining is the next iteration, right?
Right.
And then sometimes you're like, oh, it's going to be Bellingham something or other, and you're like, wait a minute, that's already a thing.
Yeah.
How did that whole process?
So we didn't want to be tied to this necessarily Bellingham.
Yeah.
We wanted to be able to expand beyond our region. So that was part of the process of figuring out our name. Right. But we're all tree huggers, mm-hmm. all of us. And anybody associated with Lost Giants, we're all outdoor enthusiasts and mountain bikers and hikers. And part of it, I think, was inspired by there's a trail up on Galbraith named Lost Giants.
There is.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an old one. It's been around. It's one of the original trails up there. So I think that had something to do with it. But really we were just trying to capture us.
Yeah.
And I think the forest I think that just called to us. So that's,
I've drank a fair amount of these in the forest.
Yeah.
And around mountains. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the nice thing. That's why we wanted a can too, is to be portable.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about, there's kind of two worlds. It seems like there's the retail side of things, and you guys created this retail location for people to come and enjoy it and to, meet you and meet, the beer tenders or the cider tenders, whatever. What's the word for cider? Is it beer tenders?
I don't know.
It's the cider pourers.
Cider tender.
They're just like,
it used to be all bartenders, and then they came up with the term beer tender, which is clever. Yeah, and I used to be a beer tender. Yeah. I don't know, server.
Yeah. So the whole point is to get people to come in to have the experience.
Yeah.
But then also like part of that is to create a relationship with a potential customer.
Yeah.
But then there's the whole other side, which is the wholesaling. So tell me a little bit, like, how do you balance those two things, and what do you start with, and what's the set, or is it just kind of like R&D until one of those things lands? Like, what's the process for a cider company to do that?
Well, let me see if I can answer that. I think the idea was to base Well, the original idea was to sort of merge the vibe and culture of the beer world and the cider world, because cider's somewhere in between wine and beer.
It is.
It's sort of that right in the middle almost. And we wanted to bring that sort of accessibility to cider that you feel when you go to a brewery. And so that was the idea of how we planned our business. Is basically we're just going to try and be like similar to the setup as a brewery. So not so much just a tasting room like wine where you go in and you sample and then you buy a bottle. This would be more of a hang out, have a couple ciders, and in the back, that's where all the production is. So, a sort of a mixture of everything.
Is that uncommon in the cider world?
I think there's a spectrum of cideries. Because it's a little bit more of because you can grow your own apples a little bit better than a field of barley for beer. It's one of the oldest sort of homemade alcoholic drinks on the planet because everybody's had apples throughout time.
Throw a seed in the ground. That's it.
That's basically, yeah. But there's orchard style. So a little bit more boutique-y, farm style where you'd go to somebody's property.
Which is more like a vineyard.
Yep. So like Alpenfire is a good example. Thin River has that as well. And it's more of you're going to their farm. And you're going to maybe do a tasting. Sometimes you'll be able to have a tap room there too. But there's all these in betweens. And so what we're at is sort of this small commercial level. We do distribution through a distributor. We all do our own distribution. So that model is very similar to like a lot of the breweries, but there's a little bit of a spectrum for cideries in that way. So you can press your own apples. We don't press our own apples, but we do get fresh pressed juice from Washington State.
Yeah. So that's a big thing for you guys was being local and also organic as well, right?
We're not organic. No.
Were you not at the start?
No.
But it was, what was the process? I think at the start, it was like no additives. Was that another thing that you did?
Yeah. I mean, there's really pretty low amount of ingredients in our cider. It's juice or from either apples and fruit, yeast, and then yeast nutrients. And that's pretty much it.
There's a can of cider. That's how it happens, right?
That's really all it is.
It's no work. It's not much work. In fact, it's just,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny. There is the beer and cider similarities are there on the back end with fermentation, but we're not heating anything up like you do in a brewery. So we'll get the sugar's there with the apple juice. Yep. So we'll work.
We're just adding sugar.
That's right.
Yeah.
Malted barley.
Yep.
But that's just it. Is we're bringing in fresh pressed juice from Washington State, east side of the mountains. We'll get a truck over for multiple times a year, and it's a lot of apples. Yeah. We also work with local farm, Bellwood Farms up in Linden, and we can get
the biggest apples I've ever seen.
Yeah, they have really nice apples, and they grow cider specific apples, and soon that's what we're going to be getting from them.
What is a cider specific apple versus like, let's say, Honeycrisp?
Yeah, it could be they're called an heirloom apple. So there's culinary apples like Fuji, Pink Lady, Granny Smith, things like that, and we use those in cider making. But cider specific apple or heirloom apples are something like a Kingston Black or a Brown Snout. Okay. There's thousands.
Did you just make those names up, or are those like...
They're Charlie Brown characters.
Cool.
No,
they sound cool. What was the Black Snout?
Brown Snout.
Brown Snout sounds kind of badass.
Yeah. There's a russet, golden russet, which sounds like a potato, but it's a cider apple. Yeah. And the difference really is the sugar content and the tannins and the acidity. They're all cider specific. Apple is going to have more of like a farmhouse, maybe funk to it. It's not necessarily something you're just going to eat. You're going to press it out.
What does it taste like if you eat it? Is it edible?
They're all different.
Yeah.
Some are
like just let's say the Brown Snout, because it's the coolest
one. I couldn't tell you exactly what a Brown Snout tastes like.
But it's not the same as an eating apple or a cooking apple.
Nope.
Even a cooking apple is different. Like one for you would put in a pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be a base. That's probably a base of a lot of ciders in America is culinary apples because they're more available. They're more affordable. Otherwise, we'd be selling a 6-pack for $25. So you have to use a base and then you may add in, a brown snout or
for a little bit of flavor.
Yeah, if you want, it's like blending essentially.
Yep.
You're trying to figure out the right acid content, what it's going to taste like after it's fermented out. There's a lot of factors, so that's experimenting.
I'm just imagining both of you in a lab coat, like just
yep,
like too much acidity, like
yep,
next, and try it again.
Yep, that's right. That's what we are. We're in lab coats most of the day.
Yeah, I mean you're in a lab coat right now.
That's right. This is my lab coat.
So you guys have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
What is the conversation like as you're leading up to starting this company? Where did it come from? Where were you having a cider, or were you on a road trip with Abe and saying, "Man, I just haven't had a cider that I really like"? I mean, where did this? What's the origin story?
Oh man,
I said let's go into business together.
I think that'd be really hard to pinpoint.
Yeah.
I think it was a long process of several conversations. I think we were ready for something new and we had a third partner as well. And so there was 3 of us and now there's just 2, but all 3 of us it was a well-rounded team. Like we all had our lanes to start a business. And so there was that was nice because we felt like we could hit the ground running. But I think we were just ready for our own business. We were working for a brewery together. And I think it was just time for us to start something. And I think it was just good timing.
Yeah.
But the conversations just started, we were just talking about, I think we just started talking about cider as an opportunity because beer, we felt like beer was, there was plenty of breweries in town.
There's a lot.
Yeah. And it's competitive. You can't just make okay beer in this town. You have to make good beer.
What do you think is a town in the U.S. that you could make okay cider or beer? Like you just make
I don't know, somewhere in Oklahoma, maybe.
Yeah, right. Like, what? This is my new town because I can make pretty mediocre stuff.
You can make, well, I don't want to offend anybody, but I would say there's a lot of places in just our state that you could do that.
Yeah.
And we've seen it.
I will make you feel better by just letting you know that I don't think those places in our state or Oklahoma, anybody from Oklahoma listens to this podcast.
So I can just say whatever I want. Okay.
It's mainly Kansas is our biggest demographic. It's not Oklahoma yet. So we're trying to get there because it's really important.
Can't you just pick the one state that's like exactly in the middle of the United States?
What would that be?
Kansas.
Kansas is the middle?
I think it's exactly in the middle of the United States.
Oh, you learn something new every day.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Thank you.
To teach you about geography. You're welcome.
Cheers. Yeah. So it was the right time.
Yeah.
You guys came to fruition.
Yeah. I think that was it. It was just multiple conversations about what's the next opportunity. And we all really, we loved fermentation and the craft beverage industry and, especially beer at the time, but we just thought we can make good cider with our skill sets together. We'll come up with something good. And so we just took a leap and that was it. It was a lot of trust in each other.
It has to be in Bellingham because it'll be too good for other places in the state.
Right. Right. That's right.
No. So had you guys, either of you run a business before or started a business before?
No, none of us had owned a business. I'd done freelance graphic design, but nothing like a, storefront or
full operation business.
Yeah. We had management experience, working with staff and things like that, but never our own business. And I think that's what really interested us the most was like having our own business, making our decisions because we were working under people that, we didn't always go, go our way because it wasn't our business.
Right.
So you know how that feeling is. Mm-hmm. You want to make your own decisions and what is right for you.
Right.
And so I think that was a big motivation too.
Well, it's almost like with someone that has lots of ideas or has good experience or is contributing something large to a business, I mean, there's inevitably an end of the road where it's somebody else's dream and it's somebody else's business, and there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But
Right.
there's kind of a point where you get to where you go, well, I can't fault them for doing things the way that they do them because
Right.
it's their business, and I'm a component of it. I mean, maybe I'm less or more important than whatever it is, but also there's a point where we're not going to see eye to eye once you just push your way to a point.
Yeah, I think it's just like with any place of business. Sometimes you see eye to eye, you agree on things, you are building something, and then other times where you're just feeling like it's not gonna go that direction.
Yeah,
I think and I don't think there's anything personal about it. I think it's just sometimes just the way it is.
I agree.
And so we left. We jumped off into cider really feeling good about what we'd done and where we were headed. So it was it was a good time for us to do it. I think all at the same time. So, and that was, 6 years ago.
Yeah. Does it feel like a long time ago, or?
It feels like both. Very short. I mean, COVID really threw a wrench in timing, like it did for everybody, where we all felt like we were in sort of this Groundhog Day sort of pause.
Yeah.
So yeah, it feels like a long time ago that we started it, but now it feels like we've only been open 3 years.
You guys did an ad that's pineapple cider kills COVID, right?
That's right. Yeah.
That's how things boomed, right?
Yeah. We do we claim a lot of things,
a lot of scientific claims.
And we don't look into it to make sure it's true or not.
No.
Because why would you do that?
Just do a good job selling it, right?
Oh, that's all you have to do is just say something and it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the way it works now.
Put it on TikTok.
Yeah, that's right. We've been doing dances on TikTok to sell our cider.
Yep. See, now I'm going to verify that, but I shouldn't because
that's a lie. I actually just made that up.
I thought it was true.
Yeah.
So when you guys were funding the business and looking for the business, and you have three total partners.
Yep.
How did you divvy up responsibility? Where did the money come from? How did you find a place to hang your hat? I mean, tell me about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know that we were that organized.
Yeah.
I think we kind of had, like I said, we had our lanes, which, everybody had sort of, it was, there was like operations tasks, there was making cider tasks, there's marketing and taproom things. And so my focus was that, like taproom, and still is taproom, marketing, brand awareness, janitor, whatever it takes. And so that was the nice thing, is we all went in, we're like, we're the janitors.
Yep.
And so whatever just needed to be done, we just thought, oh, we're all hard workers. We'll just do it. And I think hindsight, you'd probably clearly define maybe what everything is for the long term. But in the beginning, you don't really do that because you're just trying to get it to work.
When you don't know, you like, ignorance is kind of bliss at the start. Yeah. And so would you agree that hard work and being willing to do what it takes is, I mean, yeah, it's important. If you like had all the foresight to each define your roles, great, but you knew what your strengths were.
Yeah.
And you gravitated towards things that were in those lanes, right?
That's right.
So it naturally happened.
Exactly. And so I'm sure there was conversations about, well, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this. But I don't know that there was there was definitely not job descriptions written out for all of us. And so it's evolved, and we've gotten extra help to do certain things because we just didn't, like you said, we didn't know until we do it.
Right.
And then also the business grows a little bit. So you're like, this is what we need now. Right. But yeah, it was, the beginning was just, let's do kind of what we already know how to do from working at a brewery.
Right.
That model works,
it's simple.
It makes it, if we kind of fit in there without having to say it almost into those roles. So yeah, it's kind of how it.
So, and how did you find, your location in the Haskell Business Center?
Yeah.
How did you find that? Did you look at other places? Did you have all what was your idea? What was your vision for the space that people would come into?
We looked everywhere in town. We didn't know what size we wanted to be. We wanted to kind of get a bigger place than we needed. And knew that we wanted to do can production,
Mm-hmm.
which requires a lot of space. But again, there were some unknowns. So we were looking at much small, like we have 12,000 square feet where we're at. Most of it's in the for production, and we can still grow into it.
Okay, so that's not small.
That's not small.
For the craft cidery with the structure that you have, that's not small.
No, I would say the space is a much bigger cidery than we are.
Mm-hmm.
Like most cideries are not going to be probably as big. But again, that's a whole depends on what type you are. So that space we were looking at downtown. We were trying to figure out, do we want foot traffic? Do we need what's more important? And I think we landed on production is more important. And then trying to figure out how to do that. I think the tap room was almost secondary, but we knew we wanted to have a way for people to come. We could talk to people about our cider and realize it's very important. For one, it's really important for your cash flow of your business to get people through your doors and selling off tap. But the main reason was we want to figure out what we're making. We want to talk to people live. And so that was, we just found this building kind of, weren't really looking in that area. But so it was just, it took some time. It took months and months for us to really think about what we wanted. And who knows if it's the right spot. It's big and
But
it's off. It is our spot. Yeah. It feels like us now. I think for a while it didn't. It's just a lot of space. It's like buying a bigger house than you need. And it's, you're cleaning empty rooms.
Yeah.
But now we've got a canning line now. We've expanded a lot of our production equipment. So we filled it up quite a bit.
So you had some foresight to buy a building that was, or not buy, but get into a space that's a little bit bigger than what you needed, knowing that you're going to grow into it, knowing that you're probably going to want to do production, and canning was important. You probably didn't have were you canning offsite?
We had mobile canners come in, which is what most people do. So they'll come up from Seattle or Portland, and like craft canning is kind of one of the big ones. There's another one out there now. But you schedule them, they come up, they bring a mobile canning unit. They hook up to your tank. They hook up to your water. They hook up to your CO2, or air, your air, and they can your product for you, and you assist or not assist depending on how much you pay. Yeah. And they knock out however many cans you want to do, usually up to like maybe 700 in a day cases.
So was there like a tipping point for you that was, okay, we've had enough income.
Yeah.
We're doing well enough. This is the point where we need to do 1,400 a day or something. What was that like for you? What was that decision to like say, okay, we got to buy this? I'm sure canning machinery is not cheap.
It's not. And there is, I don't think anybody goes into it saying, I'm just going to pay for somebody to can forever. It's really expensive.
Yeah.
So it bites into your profit margin.
What's a ballpark? I mean, versus buying your own canning equipment.
Yeah. So you'd pay thousands of dollars each time they show up, and they're just labor, essentially. They have the equipment. So everybody gets into it thinking, I'm going to get my own canning line eventually. Yep. Right. So that but you can't afford it at first because, it could be, an average of $100,000 for a canning line, maybe more, depending on what size you get. Luckily for us, we were friends with the guys at Herb's, and when they were closing shop, they approached us about buying it. So we bought.
They already had one.
They had one. They had one really early on, and it was, basically like brand new, and we bought it from them. Yeah. So we were lucky in that we stayed pretty friendly with all of our peers, and they were really great. Darren over there was the operations manager, and he approached us about it and sort of got, I think, first crack at it. Yeah. And Abe and I didn't know, we weren't ready. It was one of those it's sort of like how it just works, right? Like you might know this when you're a business too, is you you may not be ready to grow or buy something, but you just go, I have to.
Yeah.
This is the opportunity. It's a crossroads. And that was what it was for our canning line. And so we scraped together money and borrowed money and figured out a way to do it, because we knew that in the long run it pays for itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's, your costs go down.
What's the economics on that? Like, is it 2 years? Is it 5 years? Is it 7 years? Like, what is like when you're looking at it going, okay, I have to scrape this together because we're not ready for this, but we know we need this.
Yeah.
Are you going, okay, if I keep paying this group $1,000 for 700 cans, which is like doing the math, okay, over $1 a can, right? That's kind of wild for your profit margin.
Yeah.
And you're looking at this thing that's maybe $100,000, maybe it's a little bit less new or used.
Yeah.
What is the timeline? What's the recap on that? Recoup on that?
We factored in like 3-year return, mm-hmm. or break even on that. Mm-hmm. And that's just for what we do for our size, to how much we were canning a year. So that, for us, that's about what it was, or what it is.
How many cans do you do a year now?
That's a really tough one to say. It's a lot. So we do about 1,000 barrels of cider a year. So a barrel is 2 full-size kegs.
That's a lot.
So we do 2,000 full-size kegs. Some of that doesn't go in kegs; it goes into cans.
Right.
I could definitely give you those numbers, but I'd say that we do an enormous amount of cans. Mm-hmm. We're probably doing 22,000 cases about 6 times a year.
22,000?
No, sorry, 2,000 cases. 2,000. This is really rough math, but
that's okay.
I would say 2,000 cases probably 6 times a year. So 12,000 cases a year.
Where are those going? I mean, now that's not just local. Are they going? Is it spreading?
Mostly local.
And is it also, which is great because I see it everywhere,
yeah,
which I love.
Good.
We go a lot of places.
Yeah.
And then where do you start to see it less and less? Like, where are you trying to push to? What's the front?
Yeah. So some of it comes out through the tap room. Yep. And that's the best for business wise, but also it's great that we can have people come in and buy our cider and get cans to go. And then we distribute ourselves wholesale to our own accounts, mm-hmm. at a lot of the breweries, because we're friends with a lot of the breweries, mm-hmm. from our beer days, and ongoing.
They need at least 1 or 2 ciders, because not everyone that goes to the breweries, maybe they have food, or maybe one person drinks beer, the other person drinks cider.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the formula for most breweries, is they have to have options besides beer, and cider's a big one. Sometimes they'll have wine, seltzers,
I think that's brilliant. I mean, it's just, I feel like if you make good beer, you can be successful in this town, because it's a very collaborative environment, right?
Yeah.
But like, you guys are doing your own thing. Your competition is relatively low in Bellingham.
Yeah.
But also you basically get the feature on every song, right? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, which is not, if you go to a brewery, you're getting the feature on the song,
right?
Which is great.
Right.
I love it. I have never thought about that before.
We are a very small market share. I will say that. So there's a reason why there's only a few of us, because you couldn't have 10 cideries here. Yeah. Where our market share is, it's growing faster than beer, because beer is sort of slowed down. But there's also only so many people to buy cider, and there's not as many people buying cider. But it is
significantly more buying beer.
Absolutely, by a long shot. And so, but it's really nice, and especially now that people are making good cider, us being one of them, there's options now. So people are buying it more because they're not just getting sugar bombs, and it's almost built in to almost every brewery and tap room. Is you're gonna have cider options, and we try to get in there.
Yeah.
We like being in breweries too, because we like that. It's the mix of the cultures too.
Yeah, I mean, it's because you run your cidery like a brewery.
Yeah.
And so there's a cross of the worlds. You're not competing in a lot of ways.
And that's been our kind of whole mantra from the beginning, is you don't have to choose one or the other, unless you're celiac or you're sensitive to gluten, things like that. You can drink whatever you want to drink. I drink beer, I drink wine, I drink whatever,
Yeah.
depending on how I feel. And I feel like the wine world is sort of divisional that way. And
It is.
in that and not that it's elite, but it is in its own world. There's wine drinkers. I don't drink beer because it makes me whatever. In my mind, just moderate all of it and you can have whatever you want.
Yeah.
And
just
so
don't tell Abe, because Abe only drinks cider.
he only makes
And he
and drinks
expects
cider.
that you only drink cider too.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry,
There's
Abe.
nothing else. Sorry. This is how you had to find out. We're sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that was the idea, is like, let's have this, let's incorporate it into the beer world as well. Going that direction. Not only are we just a standalone cidery, but let's be a part of all the other, let's be a part of the beer world as well.
Mm-hmm.
in relationship.
You're able to tap into that with some of your connections.
Yeah. We just know it.
Yeah.
And also have connections, but know that world.
Yeah.
And I noticed that from bartending in a brewery too, is cider was on tap,
mm-hmm.
or it was in cans or bottles. And I started seeing the trend where more and more people were buying it.
Like, how can we get Angry Orchard out of this?
How do we push it? Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I think I've said this many times before, is Angry Orchard, even though a lot of people like sort of scoff at it because it's very sweet, they're the ones that put cider back on the map.
They did. Yeah.
They're the reason why we are here, is because they, brought after in the last 10 to 20 years, they brought it back. And so it was a jump off point.
Mm-hmm. Where are they based out of?
Boston, I think. East Coast.
Boston.
They're owned by Boston Beer Company.
Got it.
So Sam Adams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least they might, I don't know if somebody else bigger bought them out, but they're pretty big.
Well, my only perception is that in Custer, I went to the bar in Custer.
Yeah.
And that's all they had.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and Bud Light.
You'll find that in certain bars.
Yeah.
They're going to be pretty limited. It might be a lot of AB, like big corporations.
We're going to work on that bar. It's the only bar in Custer. It's the one, the main street.
Yeah.
I went in there. I was looking for my Lost Giants. And they said, "What's that?"
Well, you know who has it on tap that I was really pleasantly surprised is the Waterfront Tavern.
Oh.
Has Lost Giant. Yeah. It's one of the oldest, like, I hesitate to say the word dive bar, but I love dive bars. I call them dive bars because they're a little bit, old school, grittier.
Yeah, you can get your Irish coffee at 9 a.m. in pull tabs.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you'll see the same ass print in some of the chairs from the regulars.
But they're people's ass cheeks.
But they're ass cheeks.
Yeah. Well, and the waterfront is a staple.
It is. Anybody that's lived here for a little bit knows that the waterfront.
Yes.
And so that was like a badge of honor.
And they started serving you guys.
We're on tap.
Let's go.
Yeah, we've been on tap for a while now.
Yes.
Yeah. We break through. We're breaking barriers.
Yeah. Yeah. People are imprinting ass cheeks and drinking.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Maybe that's a shirt.
Yeah.
So day one, you were profitable, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like all small businesses.
Like all small businesses, you had no debt. You were profitable day one.
Yeah.
Tell me about the realness of starting a business. Day one, you have all this like leading up to it.
Mm-hmm.
You have the tap room. Right
So we kind of quit our jobs, kind of, which was really rare for me because I feel like I've always had two jobs. I've always had one foot in something.
Semi-dry cider. It was semi-work.
Semi-work.
Yeah.
Brad. Yeah. But I've always had kind of two things going. And sorry, my phone's buzzing. So we just all quit basically at the same time and focused on, it was the first time that any of us had like a summer off. We were working, trying to figure out what we were going to do with the cidery, but it was about 9 months of build out. We found the space. We finally found the space. And then we spent another, so we were formulating, our brand.
Yep.
What were we going to do? How are we going to do all these things? There's probably a lot of that conversation of what are we all doing?
Yeah.
That I don't remember now.
Doesn't matter.
And then
it matters, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
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 I mean, it's relevant in the moment, but now it's just, you're here.
Yeah. Then we just go. It's like the race is starting now. And so we took about 9 months to transform that space. So it's if anybody knows the Haskell Business Center, there's some big warehouse space, and we got one of them that used to be an old. I think originally it was built for a telephone company, like Bell. You can kind of still see some remnants of that. There's still like no smoking inside signs that are hanging up.
Nice. Just keep those.
Oh yeah, they're still up. Yeah, they're it's probably from the 60s or 70s.
Yeah. Don't do that here.
Yeah, we don't allow smoking in our building.
Yeah, it's not Washington State.
It's right.
It's just you guys.
It's just us. Yeah. And so it was office space up front, big bays in the back for like service trucks and things like that. It'd been many different things, but we started doing demo, and you've been in there. You see the tap room. It looked nothing like that. Took out the drop ceilings, did all these different things to make it accessible.
It's a beautiful space.
Thanks.
Did you guys do the work yourself, or did you?
We had help. We hired some out. We did some of our own. Sam Raider Construction helped us with a lot of it. They're great. He's worked on other breweries as well. Spectrum Plumbing. Those guys were all of our plumbing. But we did what we can, save money. And that was it. It was scraping together money in the beginning.
Did you take out debt?
Yeah, I sold my house.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I sold my house and used.
Small deal.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal. I bought my house in 2001 and held on to it long enough to have enough money to sort of invest in my own company, and so that was a big deal. And all of us kind of did the same thing. We were just like scraping together money. Looking for investment. And we try to do it to where we weren't in a ton of debt either. So we could start off and not have a lot of, loans or owe people money right away. And we did that.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Because if you watch a Shark Tank episode, and one of the things that, Mark Cuban will shut down almost immediately is like, if somebody is not at a point where they've bootstrapped and they've not figured out a way to not just go straight to the, to the source and say, okay, there's a time and a place for a loan, right?
Yeah.
But tell me about that. That's a big deal to have that mindset. Were you taught that as a kid or as a young adult to not take on debt, or when to take on debt, or was that just something? Was that like intuition?
Yeah, I think it was more intuition. I think we were all taught to handle money okay.
Yeah.
I know my parents were really responsible. I think I got some of that from them. Yeah. I've always been pretty good with money. But nobody taught us. Like when you start a business, I mean, it wasn't like we had a lot of consultation to start our business and go, let's study business.
Yeah.
I think that's the reason why we went into business, is because we didn't study it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you know too much, you might not take the chance. And so,
if you look back at what you went through to start it, you go, wow.
There's a lot.
Want to do that again.
Yeah. We would do things a little differently, I think. But, so it took us some time to figure that out. It was like business school live.
On the fly.
Yeah. On the fly. Yeah. And I'm guessing a lot of people do that. But that was it. It was a lot of faith in ourselves. And trying not to have an enormous amount of debt. So, because we didn't know how, believe it or not, 5 years ago, cider was not really on anybody's radar.
Right.
Really. I mean, you'd drink it at Ishka, or you'd have it in an occasional place, or at least around here.
Right.
But it wasn't really on the radar until sort of all of us jumped off and brought it to town. And so we didn't know how it would do. So there was a lot of faith in knowing, I think this is going to work. And that was it. So there wasn't really we just knew. So that's partly why we didn't want to go into a lot of debt.
Right.
I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot of money put into it, but it wasn't like $10 million or something, or $5 million. It was a reasonable amount of investment. So.
Well, it's a good example that I think people overestimate what it takes, and also forget that you can bypass a lot of that by doing the work.
Yeah.
I want to talk about mindset, because that's something that you don't see in every person. And not every person's an entrepreneur or wants to be, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
In fact, you probably get more sleep.
Yeah.
Maybe, potentially.
Working for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also think this whole mindset of betting on yourself, when people think that there's this whole like huge risk of being an entrepreneur and going out and trying something and just like doing the thing and putting all of your money into this thing, you're crazy and I can't believe it. But like, would you agree that it's actually safer to bet on yourself than it is to bet on anything else? Like if you have confidence in your abilities?
Yes. Maybe less anxiety. I don't know. For me, it was.
Right.
I've had so many different types of jobs and worked for different types of people that I just have lived long enough to feel confident in myself like, I know that I'm always going to land. I always going to land on my feet. I've never not thought that. And so that is comforting enough to take some risks, So I think that's it. The grass is always greener. Working for somebody is really nice because you can check it at the door.
Yeah.
Where I work 7 days a week in my head, right? Just like you.
Yeah.
You're always working. But navigating like, I want to go play golf right now, or I don't.
Were you reading my mind?
Yeah, I know that's what you're thinking.
Yeah.
But it'd be funny if we just got up and went golfing right now and left these two here.
Yeah, I think we're gonna go play golf. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, it's always, the grass is always greener, right? You get to go home and check out, but also that's it. It's not yours, and you're building somebody else's dream. So yeah, it's kind of, it just felt like, and for me personally, I just knew that I needed to try something as my own business. I knew that I would have the right ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And that's playing out okay.
Yeah.
Pretty well, actually.
It's working out great.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel that is kind of the nice thing, is at the end of the day, the weight of the business is on me and Abe, but at the same time, so are all the successes.
Yeah.
All the failures and successes are on you. So, I don't know if I'd have a hard time working for somebody now.
It changes things.
Yeah. But I do want, some days I really want to just punch out.
Yeah.
Especially if you go on a vacation. I know you probably do this too. You have to check all your emails and your texts, and you still have to be sort of there. And so, but I wouldn't trade that.
No,
that's fine.
No. And also then you start to scale and grow, and you have amazing people that work around you that do the things that you were doing before better than you do, and expand those things and push you to grow more.
Yes.
Then you go, okay, now this is even better, because now I have even more motivation outside my own, which is to like continue to grow this world for other people.
Yeah.
What are you've already created this dream. This
Mm-hmm.
dream's happening. You and Abe have done this. What's the next dream within a dream? Like, what's the next thing that you guys want to do with this company? Is it expand into South Africa? Like, what do you guys? What's the plan? What do you guys want to do?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that reoccurring conversations is finding maybe another space like maybe another tap room with higher traffic. I think getting out of your own region with, say like your product, you have to be pretty big.
Yeah.
So, we've dipped our toes in the Seattle water a little bit. Like we get a little bit down there. And I think that's one of the things, is maybe growing our business, but having another outlet as far as like a place where people can come. Cause like I said, we're just, even though Bellingham's small, if you're not in the right spot, and maybe it isn't Bellingham that we have this tap room, it might be maybe another area. I really like Tacoma because I grew up there, but I think Tacoma is really cool now. I don't know if that's even possible, but things like that is part of the conversation, is like, how can we expand that side of things? I think that's where the craft industry is going to, is less maybe distribution.
Interesting.
Because the profit margin is so slim now.
That's what I've been hearing.
The packaging, all of these elements for packaging are really expensive. It's the least per pound for pound. This is the smallest profit margin.
Tap house is number one.
Tap house is number one.
You don't even have to can it. You just pour it.
You're pouring it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what a lot of people are doing. I mean, look at Culshan and Trackside.
Yeah.
That is such an amazing space.
It is.
So lucky that kind of happened for them and for our town.
You guys are there too.
And we're on tap. Yep,
Yeah.
We're on tap there, and those guys are great. They've really built something pretty amazing there. But I think they realized too, like all the breweries and all the cideries, like you really need to draft is where on draft is where you want to kind of go. So I think that's what kind of is helping just make our decisions. I think the other thing would be we don't have we do make charcuterie trays.
Yeah.
Fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, and they're big and they're good for the especially for the money, and we get really good fresh ingredients. But we don't really, it's not really like necessarily checks all the food boxes for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'd like to do.
You could have two charcuteries.
We could have two, yeah.
Two at one time.
Yeah, that's right.
That might fill you up.
No, but really just try and figure out maybe the food side of things, which is a whole nother, I guess, business as well.
It's a whole,
but none of us have experience in. So that's another thing that we talk about. But those are kind of the main ones at the moment.
It's interesting that you're bringing up the whole conversation around. I feel like there's a chokehold on distribution. I feel like there's a couple of companies that have a chokehold on either local or regional distribution.
I think it's all around the United States. I don't think it's just our area. But yeah, in our area, there's a couple big players, and I think it's not necessarily their fault. I think they're providing a service and they want a certain profit margin as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But what's happened is especially since COVID is like aluminum prices went up, and some of these companies don't want to like, let's say, the manufacturers of printing cans, they don't want to deal with the smaller companies as much anymore. They like the big ones because that's easier to deal with. They make more money. So there's just been a little bit of tweaks in the industry that make canning a lot more expensive. And so when you're our size, which is fairly small, we don't get the buying power. We're not buying a truckload.
Right.
And so you can imagine like you get a savings when you do that. And so all of us smaller cideries and breweries, we struggle with it. We want to do it and we like doing it. But man, you have to diversify to stay alive.
You do. You
can't just do one thing.
You can like one avenue better than the other.
Yeah.
But also you have to kind of do all of it.
Yeah. And we really don't want to stop canning or anything like that. It's just, we have to try and find ways to keep everything running.
Right.
And so I think adding another tap room would be great. I don't know if and when that's going to happen, but that'd be pretty cool.
In Bellingham, or
maybe
somewhere else.
Maybe.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Cider.
Yeah. Just keep drinking our cider and that'll help.
Yep. Well, I'm excited to work my way through this. I'm very excited.
Okay. Yeah. Please do.
And I love all these flavors. And I just appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me today and tell me more of your story. I know a lot of us that drink your cider are like, we've talked, but also what are the real things? Because people see the apple with the beard and they go, this is what I associate with, but then they don't. Yeah. They sometimes forget there's 2 or 3 or 1 or 10 people grinding behind this brand to make this thing great.
Yeah, and that's us.
Yeah,
there's 6 of us total working at Lost Giants, and we work very hard to keep this machine going, and it's our passion, and yeah, we're there doing it every day, and we love it.
Well, for those of you that have listened to episode 1, this is episode 1. This is the pioneer episode again.
So the bar is set.
The bar is set at greatness. Here's the thing. Like, I want people that listen to this to know that I genuinely, this is my favorite cider company.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I'm excited that you guys, not only did you guys launch it and stay creative and stay very much in your authenticity, who you guys are, the flavors you like, but you also, like, when I would, send you feedback on something, you were totally like awesome and just listened, and that's super cool. So there's people behind the brand. There's owners
Yes.
that appreciate that too. So if you get a chance, and you will, because if you're at a brewery or you're at the tap room,
yeah,
and at the tap room, you will definitely get cider. If you're at a brewery, there's a good chance in Bellingham that there will be one or two options on that menu.
Yeah, so or ask for it and have them bring it in.
So if you haven't tried it, I'm telling you to try it.
It's my sales
today.
plug.
Like if you want to kick your feet up and have a great cider,
yeah.
It's not too sweet,
right?
Not too dry,
right?
Just right.
There's something for everyone.
And so again, go give it a try. And if you are listening to this and you've made it this far in the episode, I will meet you at Lost Giants and I will buy you a flight. So,
perfect.
Reach out on the Instagram, talk to Tiffany, talk to me, find us somehow, and I'll buy you a flight so you can get all the flavors. And if you're not a cider person, we'll go drink some cider if you like it. So,
yeah.
Brad, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Leo. Yeah. Appreciate you.